finally started telling people what was happening in my marriage, many of them doubted me. My family, friends, even people who had known me for years. At that time, that hurt more than I can describe. I remember wondering, why don't they believe me? Why does it sound as though I'm exaggerating? But healing has a way of helping you see your own story differently. So today I understand something I couldn't see then. People were responding to the version of my life I had shown them. Because for years I had convinced everybody that everything was fine. I smiled when I needed to smile. I attended family gatherings. I kept conversations light. Of course, I protected the image of my marriage while quietly carrying the weight of what was happening behind closed doors. I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell his family. I did not tell my closest friends. I didn't tell our church leaders. I kept hoping things would improve. I kept believing tomorrow would somehow be different. I kept telling myself, this is something I'll get through. So when everything eventually reached breaking point and I finally found the courage to speak, people were shocked. For them, the story had started that day. For me, I had been living it for years. Healing changed what I believed about silence. I used to think silence was protecting my marriage. Now I understand that silence was protecting an image. And there is a difference. An image can survive while a person quietly falls apart. Silence can feel noble, it can feel loyal. Sometimes it feels even loving, but silence also has a cost. Silence can leave you isolated. It can convince you that no one would understand. It can make your burden heavier because you're carrying it alone. One thing I've noticed, not only in my own story, but in listening to other women over the years, is that silence rarely comes from one place. Sometimes it comes from shame, sometimes from fear, other times from hoping things will get better. Sometimes from worrying about what family or church will think. Sometimes from financial dependence. Other times from protecting children. Sometimes because the person causing the hurt also has moments of kindness, leaving you constantly questioning your own reality. People who experience emotional or physical abuse don't wake up one morning and decide to stay silent. Silence often develops gradually. One unspoken incident becomes another, then another, until silence itself becomes part of everyday life. That is why I no longer ask, why didn't they speak sooner? Instead, I ask, what made it so difficult for them to speak? Healing changed my questions, and changing my questions changed the way I see people. If you're carrying something difficult today, please know this. You do not have to tell the whole world. Not everyone needs access to your private life, but everyone needs someone. Find one safe person, someone trustworthy, someone who listens without rushing to judge. That person may be a trusted friend, a counselor, a healthcare professional. It could be a pastor or a church leader who has earned your confidence, or a specialist support service. Healing doesn't always begin with solving the problem. Sometimes it begins with finally saying the words out loud. One compassionate listener can remind you that you're not imagining what you're experiencing. Looking back now, I don't blame people for struggling to understand my story. They could only respond to the picture they had been shown. I had spent years protecting that picture. One of the reasons I wrote Recycled and Repurposed was because there are some lessons that are difficult to explain in a few minutes. Experiences take years to understand. Some truths only become clear after healing begins. If my reflections encourage someone to seek support earlier or help a friend understand why silence can be so complicated, then this chapter has served its purpose. I'm Comfort Confor, founder of Rise Above All Odds. I share my story not because I've forgotten the past, but because healing has changed what I believe about it. And if that new perspective helps someone find courage a little sooner than I did, then every chapter has meaning. Please subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who may need it. And if you're carrying something silently today, please don't carry it alone. Find one safe person. It could become the first step towards healing. Begin again. We rise quietly.